Good evening, YouTube audience. Glad to be with you on this awesome Sunday, May 7th, 2023. This is my 33rd YouTube Live. Thank you for joining me. A lot to talk about this evening. A lot has passed since my previous YouTube. So much energies, powerful spirits have transitioned and have come into the mix, in terms of my own consciousness. I want to just be grateful and acknowledge that. Acknowledge all those energies in this 33rd YouTube Live. I first want to pay homage to the awesome life of Harry Belafonte, born March 1st, 1927. I thank Michael Dennis and Professor Charles Woods for hosting me to talk about what his legacy meant to me on the Real Black program. I wanted to look at specific parts of his memoir called My Song. And he titles his memoir, My Song, after something his incredibly important mentor, Paul Robeson, told him. Paul Robeson told Harry Belafonte, sing your song. And I wrote my doctoral dissertation over a decade ago on Paul Robeson. That was around the time that Suzanne Rostock did her 2 hour long documentary feature film on the life of Harry Belafonte, which should also be seen alongside his amazing. She said she could. She said she had 5 hours of footage, but she could only fit into. I remember talking to her, and really just excited about what she did. And what I saw was 2 hours, and even those 2 hours, I remember feeling exhausted. Um, Watching Suzanne Rostock's film on Harry Belafonte, I wanted to look at, but his life. I want to say that he um, he broke down barriers. The true Pisces that he is, who are destroyers of old negative patterns. When you look at their lives, including the life of my mother, a Pisces, Harry Belafonte destroyed old patterns by strategically supporting groups that he thought was making a big dent in in the new American generation, in a new society. In this part of his memoir, he's talking about the Montgomery Improvement Association. He said, I said I'd help him any way I could. And for the next 12 years, that's what I did. I started by making my own contributions to the Montgomery Improvement Association, sums that paid for gas, for the cars that took bus boycotters to work every day, and food for those who'd lost their jobs. I wasn't the only one writing significant checks, but I was a member of a fairly select club. At the same time, I started organizing house parties to raise sums from larger groups. Would the boycott have endured without that money? I can't answer that. But I'm proud of the fact that I definitely played a part, Harry Belafonte writes, in keeping it going. And not long after the boycott, I produced a fundraising concert at Madison Square Garden to keep the Montgomery Improvement Association afloat. I sang, and so did my Vegas compatriot, Frank Sinatra. And, this is so important to me to really know that he's documented his work for all of us to understand, for all of us to know, and for all of us to think about giving to causes like this, when we are fortunate enough to be able to give cause to causes like this. The Montgomery bus boycott was in December of '55. It wasn't only that cause Harry Belafonte gave to. When you read his memoir in the earlier part, he talks about his parents from Jamaica, born in Jamaica, like my parents, fleeing the immigration agents that were looking for his parents. But the way in which they always provided, the way in which he always provided, you know, is an important example for me about provision, being able to be in a place where you can provide. The male provider figure. I think Harry Belafonte, like my own dad, exemplified that almost better than any man besides my own dad and my grandfather. What a male provider looks like, what a male provider behaves like, what a male provider thinks like, what a male provider believes. Harry Belafonte, demonstrated that through his life. He talked about supporting the Montgomery Improvement Association, which was the organization that was in charge of basically getting the bus company to stop segregating, stop forcing customers who were Black to pay their fare, then get off the bus, then board at the back, all because of Harry Belafonte's fundraising and very strategic giving. And what an example. In this part of his memoir, page 237, he talks about supporting not only the Montgomery Improvement Association, he talks about supporting SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Even before the students spelled out the details of their plan, mobilizing Northern volunteers, opening field offices, canvassing the Southern Black communities, I, Harry Belafonte, knew I would have to help. That day, I wrote SNCC a check for $40,000. Now, that's in about 1960, 61. He also gave money to CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, for the Freedom Rides, where groups of Black and white activists would take the Greyhound bus on a journey, on a path, specific path from Washington, D.C. to New Orleans. And the white passengers would sit in the colored section. The colored or so-called Black or so-called Negro passengers would sit in the white section. Harry Belafonte gave to that cause. He put his money where his mouth is. He put his money to causes that he knew would lead to drastic, fundamental change in the United States. And he's a big inspiration to me. Um, Harry Belafonte says of what he gave to SNCC, that was serious money in 1961. I sort of suspected I was signing on to be SNCC's major angel for years to come. There weren't a lot of other Black angels with deep pocketed robes flying around in the wings, but I would never regret that commitment. Nearly a half century later, in April 2010, I would listen to our nation's first Black US Attorney General, I'm assuming he's talking about Loretta Lynch, speak at SNCC's 50th reunion. How much difference had SNCC made? No, Eric Holder. He's not talking about Loretta Lynch. He's talking about Eric Holder. Interestingly, who is also parents are from the Caribbean, Barbados. Eric Holder would ask rhetorically, enough, he would say, that you could draw a straight line between the forming of SNCC and my 55th floor office at the US Department of Justice. Enough that you can draw a line from SNCC to the White House and to our first Black president. And so Harry Belafonte says about him giving to SNCC in 1960 and seeing the first Black Attorney General in Eric Holder, those were pretty good returns on investment. Then what I find so remarkable is his very strong relationship in the life of Harry Belafonte. What I found remarkable and very inspiring is his close relationship to Ella Baker. Ella Baker was a field secretary for the NAACP. She later worked for Dr. King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And she encouraged the young, then college student age members of SNCC not to organize under King, but to organize separately, to have their own organization, which is what SNCC became. And so this is Harry Belafonte speaking. Bobby was right, of course, that registering Black voters was crucial. But was it more important than staging protests that shocked the system? That was the question I found myself debating the next day in my suite at the Hotel Woodruff with a dozen young Snickers. Ella Baker, SNCC's matriarch, had called me to ask if I'd meet with them, and there was nothing I wouldn't do for Ella. You know, I found that relationship Harry Belafonte had with the Sagittarian Ella Baker, born December 13th, past December 13th, so remarkable. She also destroyed destructive patterns in her work at the NAACP, SCLC, and with her mentoring of SNCC. Harry Belafonte said she started with Martin in the Montgomery Improvement Association, yet she was also the one who urged young, disaffected members of Martin's Southern Christian Leadership Conference to go off and form SNCC. I had not only agreed to meet with Snickers, but offered to pay their way up to Washington from Nashville or wherever they were and put them up for the night. Another important thing about what he did, as I shared in the video on Real Black 2 YouTube channel, when I went to Cuba for the first time, it was the Cuban artists, the rappers, Magia Lopez Cabrera, um, a co-founder with Alexei of the group Obsession. And she told me she was deeply inspired by Harry Belafonte's visit right around the year 2000 and learned a lot about what hip hop meant to the United States, to artists in the United States, born and raised in the United States. And so That played an instrumental role in Mahia thinking about developing her group Obsession in Cuba. I'm also interested in what's written by John Potash of Harry Belafonte. He has a chapter in his book called The FBI War on Tupac Shakur and Other Black Leaders. And in this chapter on Harry Belafonte, Potash writes Belafonte quickly followed in Robeson's footsteps by using his stardom to connect with the international community. He made links with African leaders early on while also fighting to end segregation and gain equal access to voting for Blacks in America. During one trip to Africa, the FBI visited Belafonte's home in the early 50s. The agents told Belafonte's wife and kids that they were investigating the entertainer for treason. Belafonte persevered and regularly aided his friend Martin Luther King Jr., provided his New York home to King, bailed him out of jail, and funded the Freedom Summer Student bus riders in 1961. U.S. intelligence kept a regular wiretap on him and King's conversations. At some point, the CIA took the lead in these efforts. As stated earlier, they inserted J. Richard Kennedy, cited as one of their top civil rights spies, and Belafonte mentions him in the book. He's the husband of a prominent psychotherapist that Belafonte befriended. J. Kennedy then mentored widely suspected Panther spy Elaine Brown, Potash writes. As also previously noted, evidence supports that U.S. intelligence had inserted agents into the lives of other Black musicians, including Jimi Hendrix, Tupac, and Wu-Tang Clan. It's unknown how much J. Kennedy may have sabotaged Belafonte's work. He talked about developing polyps on his, but it was very minor. It wasn't something that was life-threatening to Belafonte's life, his time with Kennedy. Belafonte continued to work on many other causes. Potash writes, he helped initiate the We Are the World project to raise millions of dollars for starving Africans. Belafonte also aided South African anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela, among other African leaders over many decades, and he worked against the U.S. embargo of Cuba. Belafonte started serving as UNICEF's Goodwill Ambassador in '87, while remaining an outspoken critic of US war policies and global oppression. Most specifically, I remember his comments on criticizing Condoleezza Rice for turning back the supplies of food and medical supplies that Fidel Castro sent from Cuba to New Orleans in 2005 during Hurricane Katrina. I remember him vociferously, very loudly, very strongly criticizing that policy. I want to encourage you, if you're learning something from my YouTube live, please don't hesitate to support my Cash App. It's $ Roan Fraser. And again, please spread the word about my YouTube. This is my 33rd live YouTube. I've had so much support, incredible number of support throughout the years. Well, actually, this month would make exact 1 year on my YouTube live. Bless me with $100. I would love that donation, coming through to support the work that I do, to get my thoughts together, to share my thoughts, which are valuable, which can, lead to a lot of continued financial prosperity. The ideas that I have to basically organize, to basically create harmonies, you can get on my YouTube live. My Cash App is $Roan Fraser. Again, please show your love if you're learning something from this YouTube live, and please spread the word. Subscribe, share, and like my YouTube. Since my previous YouTube, I had the awesome opportunity with my cousin to attend the Penn Relays, and it's basically a whole day of relays from the top performing relay teams in the 4x100 and the 4x400 at the high school level, at the college level, and at what the program calls the Olympic development level. So I'm grateful I had the opportunity this year, 2023, to watch and it was an exciting finish for the high school Girls Championship of America, where you have the top performing relay teams in the whole country compete against Jamaican high schools. And Jamaican high school, Hydel, won it this year. It was an amazing final. You had the anchor from Hydel there, who you see with her arms stretched up, is Danielle King, the amazing anchor who she was trailing up until the third part of the 400 by about the 300-meter mark. She was behind. She was behind the anchor for Bullis School, the Bullis School in Maryland, not too far from where I used to live. Bullis had a great men's boys high school team that made it to the final, and they had an awesome girls team that made it to the final. But that was a competitive final because in that last 100, Danielle King found that juice. She found what she needed to really pass that anchor from the Bullis School and win. And then shout out to the anchor from Edwin Allen High School in Jamaica, who came in second. And then the Bullis School anchor came in third. It was a very competitive, it was a very awesome Penn Relays 2023, and I'm glad I attended with my cousin. Um, as you can see, the sponsor on the tape at the finish line is Grace Foods. Grace is a huge sponsor of these awesome teams being able to travel from Jamaica back to Jamaica to Philadelphia to perform, to compete in the Penn Relays. And it was an amazing Penn Relays. It was worth every minute staying there to see that 4x400 final. The loud competitive final that was, I believe, or if I remember correctly, it was at 4 p.m. The only thing I didn't like about the Penn Relays experience was that it was raining and we couldn't take our umbrellas in, I guess because it can be perceived as a weapon. But I was like, where's the ponchos? You should have ponchos for people who are paying good money to go to Franklin Field. So to those organizing it next year, in the case of rain, I know Penn has no trouble locating ponchos, simple plastic ponchos for your patrons to have in the case of rain instead of not having umbrellas and not having anything. All right. Powerful performance by Danielle King in Penn Relays 2023. Again, if you're appreciating this, check out my Cash App, support my Cash App, $ Roan Fraser, and please subscribe, like, and share my YouTube. So that was track and field news. Another surprising story that hit me hard over the past week was learning of the passing of Tori Bowie. Tori Bowie earned the silver medal. I'll never forget her performance in the 2016 Rio Olympics. This was when I was living in Philadelphia. It was the last full month I was in Philadelphia. Um, it was during the Rio 2016 Olympics. Um, Tori Bowie came in second in the 200 meter, no, in the 100 meter final, where Elaine Thompson came in first and Shelly Ann Fraser Price came in third. Tori came in second. And then in the 200 meter, Tori Bowie also medaled, earned a bronze against Elaine Thompson's gold medal and Daphne Schippers from the Netherlands' silver medal. So her running is a clear, strong memory in my mind. I will never forget her form. I will never forget her finish. Very tall, very elegant, long strides, strong strides. When it comes down to that last 50, that's her strength. And she earned the final gold in a world championship meet. She earned gold in 2017 in London um, when she just nipped Marie-Josée Talou at the line to win the gold medal in London in 2017. That was an unforgettable race. So I was just surprised to hear that she had passed. It was a shock. I know she's born in Sand Hill, Mississippi. I love to hear her Mississippi accent. Um, and she left us with some very strong memories. It was a shock to hear that it was believed she was pregnant. I also heard that she got into fights. So, like all of us, Tori struggled with self acceptance and self awareness. It was in the NBC sports clip where I first learned not only was she born in Sand Hill, Mississippi, and graduated from Pisgah High School. She was her biological parents put her in the foster system, but her grandmother refused to allow her to be raised in the foster system and raised her herself. And in that NBC sports clip, you see her grandmother and you see her family. So this was clearly somebody who struggled with mental health issues, like all of us really do. Struggle with self acceptance, and it was because of that. One has to assume that it was difficult for her to train with other athletes because of those struggles that she had, which is what makes the sudden passing surprising, shocking. But I have to say, Tori Bowie, when you hear her speak in interviews, you see the fire in her eyes, you see the competitive fire, you see that she's the type to where she runs to win, she competes to win, and she's a fierce competitor. And I was expecting a little more from her, I guess, from the coaching lens, to know that she was, in fact, some months pregnant before she passed. Let me know that she had some interest in teaching the young generation. She had some passion. She had some desire deep down to impart to them, the younger generation, the gifts that she learned as an adult competing at the Olympic level and the world championship level. So, to the family and friends of Tori Bowie, I give my sincerest condolences, and I thank Tori's spirit for that strong competitive spirit that teaches all of us not only how to do our work, but how to live life, how to live life. So we thank you, Tori, for that. Right after the Penn relays on the Sunday, the day after, no, the same day, which was the 29th of April, Saturday, April 29th, I had the opportunity to see an amazing, interesting play called Plum Bun. And I made it a point to really read the novel that this play is based on. This is a play that came from a novel by Jessie Fauset. Jessie Fauset was um, an incredible intellectual in her time. She was the book review editor of the Crisis magazine, which, if you don't know, was edited by W.E.B. Du Bois. And in this particular stage version of Plum Bun, um, there were differences from the novel, but it still carried the main powerful message of being true to oneself, the importance of being true to oneself. As you can see from the cover of this playbill, the name of the stage play that I saw is Plum Bum by Jessie Redmon Fauset, directed by Walter DeShields, dramaturgy by Dr. Lisa Bratton, and adapted by Walter DeShields and Lane Savadov of EgoPo Classic Theater. This was a collaboration between EgoPo and Theater in the X that Walter DeShields is director of. And the production was excellent. There were two particular performances. First of all, the story of Plum Bun is the story of two sisters. The main sister, the main character, if you will, is Angela. Angela is the one who seems loosely based on Jessie Fauset herself. Angela is able to pass and has Negro blood, but her sister Virginia, who's darker skinned, is unable to pass. So they go in different directions um, in life. Their parents, Angela is really raised to be the domestic wife because her parents think that because she can pass, she will have an easier time being a wife. Whereas Virginia is just told to focus on the books, stay in the books, do the books, because as long as you get your education, you can support yourself and not have to depend on a man. Of course, the caveat to that is because probably no man will want you because of your complexion. So Jesse Fawcett is really dealing with respectability politics on a deep level. And so the actress playing Virginia was absolutely unforgettable. I want to shout her out and recognize her and congratulate her. Her name is Taylor J. Mitchell, and her playbill says that she's a Philadelphia-based performer, teaching artist, choreographer, director, and podcast host of the Tay Talk podcast. She was in Clyde's at the Arden, which is also in Philadelphia, and her performance was as Virginia was unforgettable. I had to go up to her after it and say, "Listen, you were so strong. I know you could do whatever you want," because that was the energy that Jesse Fawcett wrote Virginia. Jesse Fawcett gave Virginia incredible agency. in the novel, more agency than Angela. In this play that I saw, Angela is the one to kind of tell the audience that Virginia um, that Virginia does not want her man, and her man is I'm trying to think. He was an amazing actor, Anthony. Anthony is the man that likes both Virginia and Angela. Angela is really more smitten with Anthony than Virginia was. How the story played out. Virginia um, had a suitor closer to her complexion who was also an amazing performer named Khalil Wyatt. Matthew was the name of Virginia's suitor. Um, and so the way the novel is written, um, everything hinges in the story on the decision of Virginia. Um, Whereas in the play, I felt like because we were getting everything from Angela's perspective, we don't know anything unless Angela tells us. Everything in the play, just from an audience member's perspective, my perspective, seemed to be from Angela's perspective. But aside from that, it was a well done production. I give 5 stars. I give Plum Bun 5 stars. I appreciate it. I took a photo of the cast here. This photo did not include the amazing Taylor J. Mitchell. However, it did include the amazing actress who played Angela, whose name is Alexandria Orr. Alexandria Orr, I believe she's seated the fourth from the right. And she performed Alexandria. As you can see, this was a full cast that really tried to get each and every significant uh, character in Jessie Fauset's novel of Plum Bun. I hope they put it back up. This was worth going to see. This was worth learning about, and I'm sure the actors can give you testimonies on how performing this role speaks to their personal life, because that was clear. Um, the acting was crisp. It was like this. The performance was popping off of the page. Shout out to an amazing director in Walter De Shields and in Lane Savadov in their direction, because it showed in the powerful rhythm that this script had. The script definitely held a rhythm, and I was grateful to hear it and be part of it. Um, so this concludes the basic content of my 33rd Cash App. If you liked what you heard, don't hesitate to support my Cash App with a dollar sign. Um, my companion, I was hoping would make an appearance, but then let me know in no uncertain terms they're not ready to make the appearance, which is fine. Um, and please subscribe, like, and share to my YouTube. This is my 33rd one. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present these when I can. I'm not able to present every week. I'm not able to gather my thoughts about what I see and what I read every week. By the way, I am literally in the middle of Jason A. Michael's amazing biography of Phyllis Hyman. It is one of the few times in my life where I'm emotionally connecting not only with the author, but with the author's subject. And that subject is Phyllis Hyman. Check out his amazing book. I'm a part of Calvin Michaels's YouTube channel's book club, reading Strength of a Woman. Um, it's a powerful story. It's really speaking to me. I'm taking copious notes on the biography. Um, and I think Phyllis Hyman's life is such a um, is such an example for artists at the coming up at the time she came up. She saw things that no other artist will see because of how the industry got consolidated and how it changed from perfecting the live band audience to focusing on the studio. She saw all of that. Her experience as an artist transitioned to all of that. So check out Jason A. Michael's biography, Strength of a Woman. Thank you for watching my 33rd YouTube Live. Take care and God bless. Keep reading, keep the faith.